So regular viewers to my channel might be surprised to realise that I don't really grow very much over winter. I grow a lot of stuff for harvest during winter, but I don't really grow very much over winter, i.e. stuff that's not really harvested over winter, but is just harvested in spring. I do a few things, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. I think the most obvious thing that I do is the purple sprouting broccoli. And that's because it's just such a fantastically prolific crop at a time when there's just very poor quality, really, flowering brassicas around. You can grow a few cauliflowers and bits and pieces, but really purple sprouting broccoli I think is the king of the flowering brassicas, and so it's worth dedicating some space, even in summer, for a crop that you're not going to harvest until spring. Now in my case I have 3 different varieties, and I put them up down the side here so that you can see them, and they are designed really to give a continuous harvest from winter through early spring and into mid-spring, and then they kind of finish by late spring, which is great because it allows you to get something like beetroot planted after them. So the next one I want to talk about is spinach. Now although I grow the vast amount of my spinach for harvest during winter and then into spring, I do like to put a late, maybe even 2 late sowings of spinach in. One of those will go in about now, middle of October. In fact, I just planted my late batch of spinach today. I planted Giant Winter, and that is just so that we get a nice kind of continuity as the winter spinach is starting to go to seed. This spinach, which was planted a month or so later, that goes to seed maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, and it just gives us a little bit of continuity. So yeah, I do a little bit of spinach. We will harvest a little bit of that in February, sort of January, February time, but not very much. It's primarily a spring crop. So the other thing that I'm doing this year is a late crop of lamb's lettuce or corn salad. And we really love lamb's lettuce over winter, and I've always really traditionally just overgrown it for harvest during the winter period. That's the time really when true lettuce is growing at its slowest, and so it's nice to have a complement, and of course you can grow it outside, so it's great for that. And this year I've just done 1 late sowing, and that is going to go in after these turnips are finished, and that will be harvested not in February but in March, and then it'll be cleared and replanted. It'll be harvested quite quickly during March because it will start to go to seed not long after that, and I really don't like it when it starts to go to seed. The classics, of course, are the alliums. So we do, like everybody else, overwinter our garlic. We also overwinter some of our salad onions. A lot of our salad onions will be harvested during winter rather than overwintered for harvest in spring, but we will do a few for harvest in spring, and then we'll start some more in sort of December, which we'll harvest in spring as well. And yeah, elephant garlic, and of course the early bulbing onions, the so-called Japanese onions. We grow quite a lot of those, really just to see us through that sort of mid-May through to August sort of time period when our main crop onions aren't ready, and the ones in store are either not that great quality wise, or we've just run out, as we will this year. And we'll also do broad beans. In fact, I've just got a tray of broad beans I've just brought to the allotment now, so that'll be planted out next week. Half of those, well, a third of those rather, will go in the polytunnel in containers. They're the ones we'll harvest sort of April time, very early May, and then the ones that we do outside, we'll harvest those in June. The only other one that I can really think of right now are the field beans, and we harvest the field bean tips, just the growing tips, and we will have some early sowings. In fact, they're in the ground at the moment. They're the ones we'll harvest during winter, but a very small number, maybe 30% of them, will sow a bit later, and they won't really grow big enough during winter to harvest, but by maybe the end of February, but certainly into March and early April, they'll give us a really prolific harvest as well. So that's pretty much it for the things that we've got in the ground ready for a spring harvest. we won't be harvesting over winter. We will, however, have on my little seedling table up here quite a lot of cauliflowers, calabrese, red cabbage, things like that. Oh, I did forget the spring cabbages. And I don't put those in the ground. They take up way too much space in the ground, in my opinion. And I much prefer just have them in, maybe 4-inch pots all the way through winter, and then maybe late February, early March time, those get planted out. And I kind of plant them in different locations. So some will get planted in the polytunnels, some get planted in low tunnels, and then some will just get planted out in the ground under fleece. And they give me a harvest in spring, and to be honest, they're not really significantly later than if I planted them in the ground and taken up all that space over winter, when I could have been growing something that I could actually have been harvesting during winter. So that is my massive preference, to have the ground planted with things that will be harvested during winter, and then plant stuff in late winter and early spring for the things that are going to be harvested in spring, rather than planting them out in autumn, leaving them to overwinter in the ground and harvesting them in spring, and then basically having that ground tied up all the way through winter with an unproductive harvest. So the only things really that I'm overwintering, the vast majority of things that I'm overwintering, are just in the open ground, where I've got plenty of open ground space for them, things like the field beans and the garlic, and the lamb's lettuce, things like that. So you can follow that. My name's Steve, this is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.